She can yell. You better back it up. She can yell. She can yell. What's up? What's up? What's up? Exactly. Pussy nigga.
Come here for? What did you come down here for? Tell me.
To get delivered more.
To get delivered. Do you believe that the Lord tonight has set you free?
Yes, sir.
Turn around and tell those people.
Tell them. I'm not gay no more. I am delivered.
I don't like men no more. I said I like women. Women. I said women. I'm not gay. I would not date a man. I would not carry a purse. I would not put on makeup. I will love a woman. Now listen to what. Hey!
Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Gospel from the Stripper's Pole.
What?
Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Gospel from the Stripper's Pole. Today we're actually going to speak to you in reference to a forked tongue, right? Tongue, I just don't know what it is, amen? And what the Lord allowed me to see when he was sharing that with me was almost a tongue like a serpent, right? And so it's a regular tongue, but it's split in two pieces. And what we do, amen, because like the word says, our mouth is a deadly poison. It comes to a place where we have murdered so many people with our words. We have murdered so many people with our tongue. Whew. I don't know what it did for you, but it did a whole lot for me. Amen. Listen. Not to discourage you or put fear in you in any way, but let's be more conscious of what we say, what we speak. Amen? Listen. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Gospel from the Stripper's Pole. Today, I want to touch back on a segment we done not too long ago, probably about a week. I'll be giving to you good measure, pressed down, shaken together, runneth over, shall men give into your bosom, right? Bosom, right? Bosom, right?
Representing the four corners of the earth. They'll raise him up right now. He now is raised up from a commoner to a kingship. Come on, raise it up. And I'll walk him around. Turn to face here. Turn to face me. Hold it in the air. He's no longer a commoner. He's not on the earth. He's raised from earth into a heavenly realm. He's raised in a prophetic position. He's released by God. He's breaking pagan traditions, breaking areas of God. He's releasing Atlanta, Georgia. It's not him. It's the king in him.
In the news.
Unfortunately tonight, I don't have an in the news segment because I do believe that we're going to be in the news here after this particular call, after this particular show. So everybody to sit back and take a listen, give us your perspective on what you hear tonight, what you think about it, and just let us know. Tonight, Ms. Joe, we are in for a surprise. We have an illustrious guest with us this evening. He is a gentleman that I have known for over 20 years. We go back to our college days together. Some protests, of course, some championing the causes of those in the community and those that cannot champion for themselves. He has been a interesting voice in the community, and one that has met the community with some jeers and gasp, and others that are like right on with closed fist in the air, saying, right on, brother. So I would like to introduce to everyone, Dr. Michael D. Carroll. For some that know him, he is a celebrity in his own right. You either love him or hate him. So at this point, I want to bring on Dr. Carroll. Dr. Carroll, good afternoon or good evening. How are you?
Hey, what's up, man? What's up? What's going on? What's going on?
Good. Glad to have you on here. Once again, say hello to Miss Joe.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Mr. Joe?
Fine. How are you?
All right, I'm doing fine.
Good. Dr. Carroll, as I stated earlier, we have known each other for quite some time.
Right.
And in that time, I've known you to be a staunch critic and voice for various causes, some understandable, some not so understandable. I have heard your diatribes and tirades described as dogmatic, a demagogue, a hater, a hate monger. So tonight, what I'd like to do is allow you a platform to basically tell your side of the story and tell what's going on. It's just an announcement of you coming on. I've had several people that have said, I don't believe you're going to have him on, but I've also had some people saying, man, okay, I can't wait to hear this guy.
Oh,
so
wow.
I kind of want folks to judge for themselves. So this evening, I wanted you to talk about three different things, and real quick. What I wanted to do is get you to just give me some brief snippets on three different issues that I want to discuss tonight. Then we'll get into some questions.
Okay.
You can take them in order. You can go out of order. It doesn't matter. I want you to talk about black women because you've been very vocal about black women.
Okay.
I also want you to discuss the black church. You've been equally as vocal about the black church. And I want you to discuss briefly black leadership, if you will. So for the first couple of minutes, I'll give you the floor and let you take it. So by all means, Dr. Carroll.
Okay. Well, I think when you look at black women, modern day black women, you have to gain the understanding that black women are in a horrible condition, and I would venture to say 90% is self-inflicted. They have fallen to the bottom of the dating food chain. Nobody wants them. And this is not only for the women black women that you may find in the hood, so to speak, or uneducated. I'm talking about college-educated women, professional black women, have their own home, own their own cars, make their own money, but nobody wants them. And that's a serious question that the black community has failed to address. And like I said, 90% the reason why they're unwanted is self-inflicted. Now, when you deal with the black church, which also, it's just so interesting that you throw the black church in there because she's a co-conspirator of the death of the black church. Now, the black church is in a horrible condition because you have bad leadership. You have guys who haven't been called. You have guys who are only interested in robbing and making money or sleeping with women, and in some cases sleeping with men. And then when you bring the black woman and throw her into that mix, she becomes a co-conspirator. She's an enabler. Because of her inactions or actions, she has allowed black pastors to get away with some of the filth that they get away with. And then when you go and deal with black leadership, that's actually a moron because it doesn't exist. It's a shame that when you talk to the average person who's well-educated or well-read and you ask them who their favorite black leaders are, they got to go to people that have been dead 30, 40 years. Because on the political scene, educational scene, social scene, there is absolutely nobody. Nothing. Louis Farrakhan, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, there is no difference between them guys. They're all one and the same. They're cut from the same cloth. They've been pimping black people for the last 30 years, and I'm wondering when black people will open their eyes to see it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I wanted you to touch on those three things briefly because I know we're going to have some questions. And I know Ms. Joe's going to jump in there. Ms. Joe, do you have anything real quick? And before you answer, let me say, for those out there listening, if you have a question or comment for Dr. Carroll or you just want to chime in, by all means, you can call in. The number is 646, the area code, 716-5513. Just follow the prompts there, and we'll take your question or your comment. Ms. Joe, what do you think?
Okay, Jay, my only comment that I have at this time, as far as a co-conspirator, Mr. Carroll, I would like to say for there to be the word co in there, that would mean that it would take two. So my question to you is, how can the brunt of the blame be placed on the black woman if it definitely takes two in order for there to be any downfall of the church, as you so eloquently put it, if there's any cheating or anything of that nature going on? How does the brunt of it fall on the black woman if it takes both her and the black man?
Well, I mean, I think that anybody that has an understanding of the black church would have to agree that 75% of the membership is female. So when you look at the black church stays afloat off of the money donated to it by black women. And if black women would close their pocketbooks and close their legs, a lot of immorality, a lot of sexual immorality and sin that you see taking place in the church wouldn't exist. So now it's not that hard to figure out when you think about it, and you look at, like I said, 75% of the membership is female, but they only account for some 3% of the leadership, and they're okay with that. So when they allow these types of things to go on by not taking a stand, by not questioning these brothers, by not demanding accountability from these brothers, she becomes a co-conspirator. She can't sit back and criticize this brother now because, after all, she knows he was married. Hell, she sees his wife every Sunday. So how does she wind up in the bed with this guy when she sees his kids running throughout the church and talk to his wife every Sunday? No, she is a co-conspirator. She must brunt equal blame, just like that worthless pastor.
You know, this is me again, when you talk about black women in that vein in the church, you know, and let me ask you, are you a Christian?
Am I a Christian? In the sense of a believer of that Bible and the follower of Christ and all the tenets that go along with quote unquote institutionalized Christianity, no. There's no possible way that I could adhere to a religion that has meant death and destruction for our people. And we can't deny that.
Okay, in turn, are you a believer in God?
Yes, I believe that there's something out there bigger than me.
Okay. Well, you know, the tenets of Christianity and those that believe in God, one of the tenets being forgiveness and the opportunity to turn yourself around. So painting such a dismal picture of black women, do you believe that they can turn themselves around? Do you believe that professed or so-called Christians or Christian folks can turn themselves around and become productive, God-fearing, community-involved, proper folk, or is it just something that's done away with, and there's nothing that's going to help them, and that's just their lot?
Well, I mean, I think that when you look at black women, I mean, I think the horse is out the gate, no pun intended. It's pretty much done. It's a done deal. It's a wrap. It's over. I mean, most of these sisters are intoxicated off of materialism. They're intoxicated off of position. They're not politically astute. You can't hold a serious conversation with them.
What do you think of this?
Well, for one, I think it's impossible to look at anything from a one-sided view, because if you say co-conspirator, if you just said that the black woman was the conspirator, then that would say, okay, well, this is where I firmly stand. But to say co-conspirator, I'll go back to that and say it definitely takes two. No, I won't condone under any circumstances someone stepping outside of the boundaries of their marriage, a pastor stepping across the borderlines of just pastoring the church to now kind of trying to lure women in and using his pastoral powers, I guess, to basically apprehend a woman. At the same time, I don't think that there's a way to say, okay, it's just her fault or she's the brunt of it. Now, as far as saying she's the women hold 75% of the church, I would like to know where those statistics come from. I know we've talked about it many times. When you think about statistics and their viewpoint, you have to first consider where those numbers come from. Is this a number that's made up? Is there a resource where you can find these numbers? Yes, we know for many years women have outnumbered men in the church, but it definitely depends on the church. For one, it's not saying all churches. I don't know about 75%. And I also can't say that her money that she's using to tithe to the church has anything to do with whether or not she has any dealings with the pastor or anyone else in the church who is inside the grounds of a marriage. So I feel like his ground points are definitely shaky at this time.
Dr. Carroll, we do have you back on the air. Would you like to respond to Mr. Joe's statement?
Yeah. I think anybody, Ray Charles could see that the black church is overly populated with black females. I don't think it takes a college degree to look at that and figure that out. Black men are not there. Now, if you want to dispute 75%, that's fine. You could dispute 75%. But at the end of the day, what you're going to have to come to terms with is that the black church is dominantly and overwhelmingly fulfilled with black women. And nobody can dispute that. Now, when you talk about the reason and how the church stays afloat, it stays afloat off of the monies that she gives. And this is just not, you can go across the board. You can go south, east, and west. In any denomination, you're going to have an overwhelming majority of the members in that church are going to be females. Black men are not in church, and there's a reason why they're not. But and I imagine we'll get to that later. But I mean, if you want to dispute whether or not this woman is a co-conspirator, it's real simple. It's not that hard. And here's how you know she's a co-conspirator. The black church is dead. Now, that may come as a shock to some people. That may surprise some people, but the black church is dead. Socially, she's dead. Morally, she's dead. Spiritually, she is dead. And the reason why she's dead is not because I say she's dead, because the people that she's supposed to be caring to are spiritually, morally, and socially dead. So it's not me that's calling them that. It's the condition of the people that call them dead. So, and nobody can deny that. Look at black folks. Are you serious? In any black community, you have over 150, maybe even more churches standing on each corner, a cheap crackhead. And then look at the conditions in those communities. You can blindfold yourself and walk down the street. You're gonna bump into a black church. But look at the community. So if the church is dead, the question obviously has to become, who killed it? And we know who killed it. First of all, men who weren't called to preach set themselves up as hirelings and pastors, and that has been enabled by black women. So therefore, at that point, when she enables this guy to pull the chicanery and the trickery and the skullduggery that he pulls, she is an enabler, she is a co-conspirator, and the blame falls right on her just like it falls on him.
When you say the church being dead, you know, when you talk about something dead, at one time it meant it was alive. So there was a point in which I'm assuming that the church, quote unquote, was alive. Tell me what that point was. Tell me at what point did that stop? And you can give me a timeline. You can give me what was going on at that particular moment in time or in that particular dispensation. But explain to me in your words, where do you think it went wrong?
Well, I think that any time the church, obviously, when you look at our ancestors and you look at what they had to endure, you know, slavery, you look at Jim Crow, legalized segregation, Reconstruction, the black church was a focal point of those black communities. The black church was there actively involved. You understand what I'm saying? Hello?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, the black church was actively involved. The black church was involved in those communities, and this is the reason why when the Ku Klux Klan wanted to attack the black community, they burnt the black church, Now, did they burn it because they wanted to roast marshmallows? Of course not. They burnt the black church because that black church stood as a symbol to the very heart and life vein of that community. Education came out the black church. Business out the black church. You could go to the black church, it healed people. It wiped the tears from our eyes during some of the bitterest times in this nation's history. So when Ku Klux Klan wanted to get at black people, they burnt that black church because that black church stood as a beacon of light and represented that black community. Now, today, the Ku Klux Klan would be asking y'all to build black churches because this modern-day black church serves as a beacon, a monument of spiritual and religious failure. And if you want to start look at a starting point of when the decline of this institution took place, when black folks climbed into the bed with white liberals, right around the 60s, when white liberals began to have influence in the black community, because think about it, historically the black community has always been a conservative community. Historically, we've always been conservative, but then all of a sudden something changed. And when the 60s came along with this love generation and you could do what you want to do and, don't condemn him because he's gay, he was born that way, this political correctness, and for the life of me, I can't understand how a church can preach the gospel and be politically correct. They're diametrically opposed. And when you had that take place, you had this beginning of the end for this black church, because now you have guys who stand up in the pulpit and tell that church, listen, I have a baby outside my wedlock, outside my marriage. And then you have people sitting in the pews saying, oh, that's okay, Pastor. Everybody sins. That's all right. So now he has babies all throughout the congregation, all throughout the city, because he's just a man. Let's not condemn him. Let's not hold him to a standard because he says God has called him to preach. Now, you remember, you got that Bible. Y'all study y'all's Bible. What happened to the priest when he went behind the Holy of Holies and he wasn't fit? What happened to him? Why did they wrap that rope around him and wrap that veil on that priest? And when he went behind that veil to offer up sacrifices for the sins of the nation, and he wasn't fit, what did God do to that guy? He struck him down, and they carted him out from behind that veil because, you know what? He wasn't fit. And the pulpit is an archetype for going behind that veil. And if God was striking these guys down today for not being fit, standing in these pulpits, there wouldn't be a pastor nowhere preaching in these pulpits.
Dr. Carroll, I seem to be getting things off of the chat room and off some IMs here. Ms. Joe, go ahead, please, by all means.
Well, I mean, one, I would like to respectfully say we're kind of mixing everything in there. Anytime you go too far extreme on anything, people tend to tune you out. So I would say, is there an issue in the black church? There's an issue in the church as a whole. But in the black church, yes, there are issues. Yes, you do have infidelity. Yes, you do have adultery. Yes, you do have those sins that are going on. However, I don't think it is completely ridiculous to say that the brunt of it lays on the black woman because she makes up a large portion of the church. And the numbers are important, because if you can't tell me what amount or what percentage she actually makes up, then you can't actually validate your viewpoint stating that she's the brunt of the co-conspirators that helped bring the
You know what? That is absolutely...
Also, I'll let you speak. Just one moment. Also, having that said, not just saying that I believe that's false, saying that she's the co-conspirator. I know there are many pastors out there that definitely take advantage of their powers as a pastor, but there are some good pastors. Just like there are some women that may go after the married men or the pastors or the deacons, it definitely takes two. So it is completely ridiculous to say, hey, it's this woman because she makes up the brunt of the church. That's like so that would be like Adam saying, hey, Lord, oh, no, actually he did. Hey, this woman that you gave me, we can't blame our faults on other people. And then my question to you as well, you're saying the black woman, the black church. So what is it actually that you stand firm on? Are you just going to completely, if you were to date, would it be completely outside of your race because you're saying that the black woman is she no longer has value, no one wants her, she's deemed unnecessary. So, That would be my question to you. Would you stand firm on as far as religion or as far as what a woman should have of value? Should she be outside of your race, or do you just want us to be stronger as a people?
Okay, now, if I'm going to answer these questions, and I don't have no problem with you disagreeing with what I'm saying, it doesn't bother me. But, I mean, you know, let's try to cut it down, because you asked me a lot of stuff in there, and I'm going to try to get to all of it. First of all, you sit there and you ask the question talking about being extreme. I don't know if you've just been beamed in from Mars or whether you've been living on for the last 40 years, but the conditions of black people are extreme. We are at the point where we are close to being extinct. You're talking about a people that's on the cusp, you know, of extinction. Have you looked at the conditions of black people? And you want to talk about extreme? Yes, they're very extreme. And you can't solve extreme problems with moderate solutions. You can't deal with extreme problems being politically correct. You can't deal with these problems if you don't want to offend people and tiptoe around, not stepping on their toes. Now, again, like I said, if you want to sit back and debate the percentage of black women in the church, you do that. But I don't think anybody that you ask would disagree with the fact that the black church is overwhelmingly populated with black women. That's Ray Charles could see that. That's not hard to figure out. So now, and then when you say that, and I don't mind you quote me, but when you quote me right. I didn't say the black woman took the brunt. I said she is a co-conspirator. And based upon that definition means that there's equal blame between her and worthless pastors. I did not put more blame on her. I said now she's overwhelmingly keeping the church afloat because she's paying her money and she's opening her pocketbook, and in some cases she's opening her legs. So I don't have no problem you quote me, but I just want you to quote me right. Now, as far as dating, that ain't even an issue. Why does that always have to be an issue when you want to talk about the issues that are prevalent to black people or the church? It always has to come down to just because you're saying something that some people may perceive as being hard against black people, all of a sudden you don't want to date black women. Listen, I have no problem with dating black women. But the fact of the matter is that you can't hold a conversation with them. You can't discuss politics with them. You can't talk about geopolitical issues with them. You can't talk about things that matter and of substance. Now, if you want to talk about Monique or who had on what on the red carpet, or if you want to talk about some other buffoonery or foolishness, then you're right at home with them. But you can't take her and sit in a coffee shop and have a serious conversation as a black female as to why your first black president will not nominate a black woman for the Supreme Court. And you can't have that conversation with no black woman. And this is an issue that black women should be incensed over. But you know what? You don't hear nothing from them. Because you know why? They're too busy trying to defend the fact that they helped murder this black church. Nobody can get away from that. The black church is dead. This black woman is a co-conspirator of that murder. And if you want to bring them up on charges, you're going to have to bring that pastor up on charges. You're going to have to bring that black woman up on charges. And as an enabler and also a co-conspirator, you're going to have to get deacons.
We have our chat room is on fire right now, and our IMs, I can't keep the IMs off my computer screen. We have comments that range the gamut from Mr. Carroll being insensitive, being ignorant, to do you probably date white women? No black women will date you, and we are getting these comments from Toledo, from D.C., from it's about pretty much, nobody from the West Coast has chimed in, but the East Coast seems to have a lot pretty much now. So let me
answer that. Can I answer that? Can I say something about that?
Before you answer,
hold on. Let me deal with that. Let me deal with, and see. Listen, I understand that. I have very thick skin. I'm not new to this. As Andre, you can attest. I'm not new to this. I don't have thin skin. I'm not saying you like either one of you or any of your listeners, but I'm not easily offended by this. So if somebody say, well, you just mad, or what black woman hurt you, or you, how can you talk about black women like that, and your mom is black? That is so insane. It's insane, because if anybody cannot see the difference between our mothers and their generation and this current crop of black females today, then, I'm wondering what they're smoking. This woman she is what she is. She has fallen to the bottom of the dating food chain, and like I said, 90% of it is her own fault.
Joe?
Okay, well, for one, you know, I respect everyone has their own personal view. I would have to ask Dr. Carroll, my reason for bringing dating in, actually, there was, you know, an underlying issue. If you feel like she's worthless, if you feel like she has low value, low morale, low self-esteem, she doesn't have substance, she's not educated enough, then how could you look to her and say, oh, this is someone that I would consider? I mean, that would be like, okay, well, I'll just settle. I know that you're not worthy of me, but I'll just settle and be with you. And then the reason why someone would bring your mother in or anything of that nature, because either you're going to date someone twice your age who's about 80 years old, or you would have to look at a woman and say, you know what, some of them may have low morale, but there is someone worth it. Some of them may not be as educated, but there are some who definitely have deep roots of education. They may have their PhDs, their masters. They may be as equally as street smart as they are book smart. So I say people tend to tune you out when you get too extreme. If you say there's a problem in the church, the reason why I asked about the numbers, once again, is because I'm not stating, yes, anybody could go to church, as you put it. Ray Charles could go to church and see that the women outnumber the men. But having that said, just because the women outnumber the men, for there to be the co-conspirator, and you keep saying the women, the co-conspirator means the church as a whole needs work. The church as a whole needs to be more educated. The church as a whole has things that has challenges. So one would more respect or more be willing to hear your viewpoints if that was, you know, how you were presenting this. But you're presenting it as you're pointing fingers. And usually when you point fingers, there are three pointing back at you. What is it that you have? You know, how do you feel about yourself as a black person when you are attacking other black women and the church as a whole? You know,
Joe, that comment, I don't even think is fitting in such a serious discussion. You know, that comment I would relegate to the playground. If you point the finger, you got three pointing back at you. That has nothing to do with this, because you're admonished in your own Bible, if you study it and read it, that you ought to be able to discern. You got to be able to try the spirit. You have to be able to defend your faith. That don't mean that you're judging. That don't mean that you're pointing a finger. All that means is that you're doing what your Bible admonishes you to do. So if you're sitting in a church and you're trying the spirit and you're in tune with God, and that guy is not living the life that he professes and says that he's been called to live, why are you still sitting there? So now when you sit there and you know this guy has stepped out on his wife, because he stepped out on his wife maybe with you, not you per se, but a female or one of your friends, or in some cases, maybe one of your guy friends.
What? Women. I said women. I'm not gay no more. I am delivered. I don't like men no more. I said I like women. I said women.
And you know that he stepped out with them, but yet you still go there. You know this guy is, and I ain't talking about somebody who stumbles. I ain't talking about somebody that just messes up and makes a mistake. Look, I made a mistake. I apologize. Move on. I'm talking about a lifestyle. I'm talking about a lifestyle of sin that you ain't got no whispers about. You know that this is what's going on, but yet you sit there. So if you stay in that situation, this is when you become just as guilty. So, I mean, look, we ain't going to sit here and debate these numbers. We can go back and forth on numbers all day long. The fact of the matter is, and I'll say it and I'm going to continue to say it, black men are not in the church. They're not going. Because you know why they're not going? I'm going to tell you why black men aren't in the church. Because when they deal with one of you sisters that go to church, he has to deal with the fact that that pastor is in his bedroom. And in some cases, again, that might be literal. But then also he's there because what that female is going to do is she's going to use that pastor and what the pastor said. And my pastor said this. And my pastor said a man ought to be doing this. And my pastor, see, your pastor is filling your head with all of this gunk. And you take that to your man, and you know what your man say? To hell with you and that pastor. So now when you come to him and say, well, honey, why don't you go to church with me? He's like, the hell with that guy. Because game recognized game. He knows that that guy ain't nothing but a two-bit hustler. He know that guy ain't nothing but running game on a bunch of emotionally damaged, psychologically confused black women.
But I got to tell you, these hoes ain't loyal. You got to find somebody. Okay. All right, be seated, please.
That ain't hard to do. Anybody can do that. Buddy can get up there and do that. Deal with these sisters. Are you serious?
Okay, so let me get this right. The three fingers pointing back at you would be something we could take to the playground, but gang recognized game, when you're talking about the church, isn't something that should be on the playground. Also, I'm saying that you cannot look at someone else without first looking at yourself, because the people that you are degrading, you happen to be one of those people. So you can't, there's no way to separate the two, gang recognized game. And then also when you make the comments that the women are taking to their husband, that sounds personal. That may sound like maybe something someone told you, or maybe something that someone who wasn't as educated in their biblical facts may have said. But I know how to discern. I know for myself how to read and what to take from it. I know the pastor, when he stands up, he's getting his word from God, but basically, he's no different than any other person going to church, except for he has a different position. So, yes, we do all need to educate ourselves biblically and spiritually. We do all need to make sure that we're able to discern. But I don't feel the comments that are given is what all the women in the church, especially all black women, think.
I'd like to chime in real quick, if I may. Once again, for those that are tuning in, by all means, I do hear you and see you on the IM in the chat room. Please, if you have a question, call in, area code 646-716-5513, and follow the prompts. And please, by all means, give your views. And I will mention your views that you have given over IM and chat. Dr. Carroll, I'm a person of solutions. Ms. Jo will attest. We get tons of show ideas from people that want us to talk about relationship issues, and I don't like to do it because we like to talk about what Bonquisha and Tyrone is doing. We don't want to talk about what we're doing, and we don't want to have any solutions. So since I'm a person of solutions, my thing is this. We have some ills in our church, and I agree with you, because Ms. Jo will attest to you, and some of our listeners will attest that I have some major bones to pick with the church also. However, I do believe that at some point somewhere there are folks, good folks, that have been able to keep the life support going on the church, so to speak, that have sparked life in. I've talked to people that have had their lives changed. They've come off the streets. I've talked to women that have been lost and out of touch, unaware, unsavvy, and because of giving themselves, giving their lives over to God, and becoming a part of a ministry, they have actually turned themselves around. And I give them credit for that, But with all of this that has been said, with all of your diatribe that you have given us, with every thought and nuance that you've conveyed, my question is to you, what is the solution? I refuse to believe and accept that it's just a dire strait, that there's nothing else we can do. I also want to know, and I'm not going to load you, but I also want to know what brought the men out of the church. Was it exclusively the pastor? Because I believe that as a people, we were really done bad. We were really sold a bill of goods. We were really, downtrodden throughout history as black folks, as African-American folks. And I believe that in church, which is one of the institutions that, we kind of self brought up, I do believe that we kind of suffer from some of the ills that were taught to us and given to us, and some of the things that we were relegated to. Like, we weren't given the best meat on the pig, so we were given chitlins. So now we make them something that we can eat. I think we have done that a lot of times with some of the things in church. However, I do believe, and as a Christian man, because I believe in the Lord, I love the Lord, and I will continue to do His will. I've been called to the ministry, and I'll go to bat, and I'll go tooth and nail until my grave, acknowledging and believing in Christ Jesus, Lord and Savior. But what can be done?
Well,
from someone as astute as you, what can be done? What is the solution?
See, and I always get these questions, and I want to deal with that, but I also want to deal with why the black man left the church. But I'm gonna deal with what can be done first. And see, and this is the problem whenever you address something, until the alcoholic can actually admit that I have a problem, you can take him and you can chain him at AA meetings. Ain't gonna do him no good. Until the person strung out on crack or drugs, until they can actually admit, you know what, I am a drug addict and I need help, you can stick them in Narcotics Anonymous. It ain't going to do them no good. People have to come to terms with the fact that there's a problem. Now, just going to saying, well, yeah, there's some things wrong with it. No, there ain't no some things wrong with the black church. The black church is dead. It has left its first love. It has turned its back on black people. Black people are like a ship without a rudder or a boat without a rudder, tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. This church is dead, man.
Obedience is the key that unlocks prosperity. You're always going to have somebody barking at you. You're always going to have somebody persecuting you. That come along with it. But just put your one up and go on to the bank.
What?
I don't have no problem. They persecute me. You try to persecute me, I put my one up in my robe and don't put it down till I get to the bank teller, and I hit that button, the air blowing all upside your head, and I just turn my money in. Then if I don't do it in my road, I just get my convertible Mercedes and have the top down already. Now you can't handle that shit, bro.
What?
Yes, I got a $16,000 dog.
What?
Yes, I got a $16,000 dog. A dog. $16,000 dog.
Well, I be out walk on this money. Woo! 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 Get some anointing. You put some up here. Woo! Man. Woo! Put some money. Put some anointing on this money. You put something up here. You put. Woo! Prosper. Prosper, I said.
You want your bills paid? Throw money at their feet so they can dance in it. What do you know? It's a prosperity gospel with a string attached. That string is works, and that means it's no gospel at all.
And that's what we have to come to terms with. Now, does that mean that there's not a powerful God that can resurrect this institution? Yes, there is. But what needs to be done first is there needs to be a purging. And when you got guys in positions of leadership and you have enablers sitting on boards who have allowed this guy to do what he's done, and you have co-conspirators and co-murderers sitting in the pews, i.e. black women, there needs to be a purging, man, before this institution can even come back to even a symbol of what it used to be. The institution is dead. It is not even on the radar when it comes down to black people. You go out up in East Cleveland and talk to some 15-year-old standing out on the corner of East Cleveland with a loaded 45 and a pocket full of crack. He ain't thinking about that black church. What has the black church done for him? And what has the black church done for the communities in which they reside? And this is the reason why Jesus, in that Bible again, when he was healing the people and dealing with their needs, and he looked at how many needs the people had, he turned to his disciples and he said something that was very profound. He looked at his disciples after looking at the conditions of the people. You know what he said? The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And when you look at the conditions of black people and across the board, be it education, be it socially, be it relationships, be it finding work, be it whatever. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers, we just don't have them. These guys are out sleeping with other men. They're sleeping with other women. They're out riding around in Cadillacs. They're doing everything but what they say God has called them to do. So for me to come now and sit down to the table with a bunch of people who haven't really come to terms with the fact that this institution is dead, man. It's finished. At this point, it's a flat line. It has no pulse. You can't get nothing out that institution. Now, I know that's going to upset some people, and that comes as a shock to some people, but that's just the reality of it. And you know why I say that? Look at the conditions of the people who attend every Sunday. And you say people have been changed. Yeah, I applaud that. If they can go in there and that morgue and they can change their life, that's good. But you know what? There's some girls that I know who joined sororities and their life has changed for the better. There's some women that I know who joined social organizations and their life has changed for the better. You know, there's some girls who hooked up with the Girl Scouts and they changed their life and became devoted and clean. And so, I mean, that ain't the barometer of whether or not it has effect or not because people change their life. What the barometer is look at the condition of black people.
Dr. I have to support what I'm saying by saying that, you know, a sorority or social club isn't designed to change people's spiritual life. You know, a ministry, i.e. a church, was. Now, that's not the exclusive thing it does. That's not the only thing it does. There are some other things it does. But there are some people that I know that have given their life over to God, that have changed themselves, changed their lives, have joined the church and become productive in that particular ministry. And there have been some good ministries that have been out there. You know, so I can't throw all of them away just because a few, if not a significant number, are doing it. Now, when you mention the purging, what is this purging process that you talk about? You know, hold on. How do we purge?
Before I deal with that, let me deal with this. You want to talk about spirituality? You want to talk about spiritual growth and spiritual maturity? Then you explain to me, and you ask your listeners this. Since, you know, there are a lot of them who disagree with me, and they go to church, and they consider themselves spiritual. Then you ask them this question. How is it that 98% of black people who go to church, attend church, read their Bibles, love the Lord, pray to God, can vote for a guy who is actively, diametrically opposed to everything that they're supposed to stand for as a Christian? And I'm talking about your first black president, Barack Obama, who for gay marriage, and you know what the Bible says about homosexuality, it's an abomination. But he don't have no problem with gays getting married. He's for abortion. And if all of these Christians who love the Lord, what comes first? Getting a first black president or obeying what God said? So now I got to bring into question their spirituality, because if you're going out vote for this guy simply because of the fact you want your first black president, even though he's diametrically opposed to the issues. I'm not talking about whether he believes once saved, always saved, or believes should you be baptized in the name of Jesus. Those are issues we can debate. I'm talking about core issues. How do you explain that?
I would explain it myself the same way in which I would say people, when they go to school, you know, are exposed to, you know, creation versus, you know, the science aspect. Or when people go to work and on their job, they're forced or sometimes encouraged to do things that they shouldn't do. I don't think any of us that leave the house in the morning is not exposed to something that we shouldn't do or goes against our moral fiber. But we make the choice to accept it and roll with it, or we denounce it. You know, if there are those that consider themselves Christians that did vote for President Obama, you know, okay, I can live with that. I voted for him, and I voted for him because I believe he was best qualified. I did not want, you know, the conservative right to be involved or to be in the White House, so I voted, you know, in the liberal sense, or voted, you know, in the democratic sense. But I think we all are faced daily with something that cuts against, you know, what we believe in. I think we're all faced with something that, you know, challenges our belief system, but, you know, are we throwing those things out either? And I understand with the church, at least with the black church, that's closer to home. So if we can't do nothing else about what goes on in our life, we should be able to do something about what's closer to home. But again, the purging. What is this purging process? How do we do it? Because, like I said, I'm about solutions. I want to know, because I want to implement this in some ministries that I've seen, that I've been involved in.
Well, I mean,
I want to know how can we turn this around?
Well, I mean, again, like I said there needs to be a purging. Now, First of all, that's something that y'all need to resolve with y'all's God that y'all pray to, that y'all believe in. I mean, because that's where it's going to come from. I can't sit here and because I don't attend. I don't remember the last time I've been inside one of those institutions because, like I said, I already know they're dead. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that here's a solution for this dead church. No, I mean, you know, hell, if you want one, I can give you one. Hell, you can start off by trying to create some level of accountability. You know, but good luck. I mean, because you're going to have to work through a board of corrupt deacons and trustees. And again, black women who are enablers, these are the people that you're going to run in contact with. But as far as the purging, there's no question that there needs to be a purging. Anytime you got a guy standing in leadership and this guy is not fulfilling what he says God has called him to do, sure, he needs to be purged. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, that's axiomatic. But the fact that he remains there, it just lets you know the depth of corruption and death and decay, spiritual decay that exists in these institutions. This institution is dead. I'm sorry to announce this to people. It's dead, man.
You know, we have a caller on the line. I'd like to get to that caller. The caller is coming from area code 330. The exchange is 603. Caller, by all means, your comment. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
My name is Beverly Butler. And
How are you, Beverly?
How are you? How everybody doing?
All right. How you doing?
Oh, I'm blessed, thank you. I just got in on listening on the call, I must say, for the last maybe 10 minutes or less, you know, and I'm listening to all the comments about dead institutions, dead black folks, not a good president. One thing about it is we don't have enough personal holiness. There has to be personal holiness before it can be executed. We can have a lot of comments, a lot of critiquing, but the thing of it is, I knew a man that died and was resurrected. So God don't have a problem about anything being dead. And history usually repeats itself. So a lot that's going on right now, we don't have to check in God and say, in case you didn't know, we need to update you. Now, for a lot of things about Obama or any other president, he's critiqued highly. A lot of the things that is being said about Obama, a lot of people didn't have the wherewithal or the zeal or even cared about any other president and spoke out as much. That's including white, black, Tea Party, or whatever. He's critiqued on his thoughts before he ever speaks them. What? So everybody is harder on Obama because generally when you go to a bush country or forest, you usually have to have a machete. And if anybody had made a trail, one would know that somebody's been here before we have. So a lot of times when you go through, you get the first mosquito, you get the first snake, you get the first everything before it's chopped down, and a lot of things you don't even get to see until it is cleared, with mistakes as well as successes. So a lot of times we have a tendency to judge our people harder. I didn't know there was a Tea Party until it was Obama. I didn't know people was upset with the economy until Obama. I would to God that they was upset about it about 8 years ago. I think it would have saved the economy. So I'm saying as far as anything dead concerning upon this rock I'll build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. He's not talking so much about hell. He's talking about the church will prevail against hell. So my thing is that this is an establishment made by God. We have to continue to go forward with the way the disciples did, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, because he didn't hide any of the shortcomings of the disciples. You could pin anybody today associated to all 12 and find the weakness in every last one of them. And God still chose them. Oh, I chose you and I didn't know you was a cusser, Peter. Oh, I chose you, Judas, and I didn't know you was a thief. Speaking about deadness and what ain't right. I mean, you need to throw the whole Bible away. And you can't throw the Bible away without throwing the church away. So if you're going to ditch the church, there ain't no black church, white church, or whatever. He said, upon this rock I'll build my church. So if you're going to ditch the church, then you need to ditch the Bible. Because this is his institution as well as the marriages. And because when people don't want to do the way they want to do or be co-signed by it, we want to ditch it, or we have a higher authority of it, or an opinion. But there's already a standard met. We don't have to look for a standard, we have it. So what we have to do is have a personal holiness before we go out our doors in order to execute it.
Ms. Butler, I want to thank you for your comment. Our time is drawing nigh. This has been one of the fastest hours that we have had. I really appreciate your comment. Thank you so much for dialing in and chiming in. We are going down now to the last of our show, and I want to begin wrapping up. And I want to give Dr. Carol a chance to give us 30 seconds and just kind of send us out. Ms. Joe also chime.
Okay, well, brother, I mean, that I got to say something about your last caller. I mean, that's case in point of what I'm talking about when I talk about the black church and how it has failed black people politically, socially, economically, spiritually, most of all spiritually. The black church has failed. And whenever you got black people who are politically unaware of the ebb and flow of what's going on politically, I mean, that's the church's fault. I mean, the church, you let the people come in who's running for office. You let them come in, you let them kiss a few of your black babies, hand out some candy, but you won't politically educate your people, and that's your job as a leader. So, I mean, again, when you hear that kind of talk, it just lets you know it's failed, man. And I'm sorry I know that upsets people. I know people don't like that. I know that they disagree with that. But when you look at the overwhelming conditions of black people across the board, it's not that I'm saying it's dead. The conditions of black people say it's dead.
Okay, I appreciate that. Ms. Joe, quickly, before we get out of here, your final thought.
Okay. I would just like to add in, I will agree on some points that, yes, we do need to work together as a people. Yes, we do need to strengthen our black church, our black leaders, etc. But just as, he keyed in on, Dr. Carroll, you keyed in on the president. It's not, some that did vote for him because he was black, some did vote for him because he was the first black president, but some actually voted for him because he was the best suited person for the job. And I would rather take him any day than over his running, the running mate. So, just like in the church, you are going to have some weaknesses in the church. You are going to have some issues and challenges, but you will also have the strong black churches. You will also have the strong contributors to the communities, the strong educators of our children. So I will not for any reason take a stand upon my president, upon our pastors, upon those who are actually standing on their posts to do the job they were called to do. Dre, the rest is on you.
Thank you, Ms. Joe. Again, thank you, Dr. Carroll. I appreciate it. I really let our time get away from me today. There's a lot of things that I wanted to say, but I wanted to give Dr. Carroll ample time to espouse his views and Ms. Joe to rebut. We definitely have to have a part 2, and I think the next time I would definitely be a bit more vocal.
And as we always say bang, bang.